We're about to conduct an experiment. Focus your gaze on this red dot in the center of your screen. Don't look away. Just keep staring at it. Keep watching. Good. Now tell me. Did you notice what happened to the yellow circles on the sides? Most likely no. Let's look again. This isn't a magic trick. This is change blindness. Your brain, completely absorbed by a single task, didn't just miss details. It erased them. It replaced the missing information with the most probable background so as not to bother you. Right now, your fundamental belief, "I see what's really there," has been shattered. This isn't a window to the world. It's a movie your brain edits in real time. In a famous 1999 experiment, half of the participants, counting basketball passes, failed to notice a person in a gorilla suit. He walked right across the entire scene. That was just one of your internal editor's tricks, and soon we'll reveal why it's forced to do this for your own good. The doubt you're feeling right now isn't a mistake. It's the key to the entire system. Here's the first riddle. Why are people in a state of mild depression, whose brains are thought to be working with distortions, statistically more accurate in assessing their real chances of success than healthy optimists? The answer to that question awaits you in Part 6. And here's the second. How does your brain manage to completely shut off vision 3 or 4 times per second while you quickly shift your gaze, yet you still see an absolutely stable and continuous picture of the world? Not a single dark frame. During a waking day, your eyes make up to 150,000 such rapid jumps. We'll reveal the secret of this editing trick in Part 4. These riddles aren't just curiosities. They point to 6 fundamental mechanisms that we will turn into your director's console. We have 20 minutes. In that time, you'll receive 6 neurobiological tools. They will transform you from a passive viewer of your life into its active director. This is your director's console. With its help, you'll learn to manage your focus of attention, understand how emotions rewrite facts, and see how past experience creates your present. This will change everything. From everyday arguments, where you'll suddenly realize that you and your partner are watching 2 completely different movies, to assessing your own strengths when you become aware of the filters of your positive illusions. And the first, most important tool in this arsenal, controlled hallucination, we'll start dissecting in just 30 seconds. Here's a simple question. How do you even catch a ball thrown to you? Logic says it's impossible. Light needs time to reach the retina. A signal needs time to reach the brain. The brain needs time to process the signal and send a command to your hand. By the time your hand starts moving, the ball will have already flown past. So, what's the secret? As early as 1867, physicist Hermann von Helmholtz suggested that the brain doesn't just see, but makes unconscious inferences. It doesn't wait, it predicts the trajectory. But the reality turned out to be far more radical. Your brain doesn't look at the external world. It creates a complete, detailed simulation of reality in the absolute darkness of the skull, and only slightly corrects it with meager data from the eyes. What you call vision is 90% brain predictions and only 10% actual data. This is controlled hallucination. But by what rules does the brain decide what to predict? Why does your brain stubbornly see a surprised face in a regular electrical outlet, even though you know perfectly well it's not? This isn't a system error, it's its key function. The brain constantly compares its internal model, its expectation, with signals from the sensory organs. Any discrepancy is a prediction error, which neurobiologists call surprise. And the brain's main goal isn't to accurately measure the world, but to minimize this surprise at all costs. It's energetically more efficient for it to see a familiar face pattern in an outlet than to process 3 chaotic, meaningless holes. It's like the flow of water. It always chooses the simplest and most familiar path. Your life is an unconscious drive to make the world more understandable, even if it has to distort it to do so. But the strangest thing is that this process is described by a strict mathematical formula. What makes you flinch at a sudden sound behind you in an empty apartment, even if your rational mind is 100% sure you're alone? This proves that two different realities are operating within you. Consciousness operates on facts. I'm home alone. But the most ancient, basic levels of the brain, by default, predict a threat from any unexpected stimulus. It's better to be wrong 100 times than to miss a real danger once. Numbers decide everything here. A threat signal reaches the fear center in 20 milliseconds, but your consciousness in 300. Your body is already in battle, while your mind hasn't even received a report from the front. Your reality is primarily a reality of survival, and only then of objectivity. This system seems uncontrollable, but it can be hacked if you understand the rules by which it learns from mistakes. If the brain is a prediction machine, how does it learn? A child touches a hot stove, feels pain, and updates their internal model. Stove equals dangerous. This seems like simple learning from experience, but in reality, it's a cold mathematical calculation. The brain weighs two key factors: the strength of its old belief and the weight of new data. It obeys a law discovered by the English clergyman and mathematician Thomas Bayes back in the 18th century. This mathematical engine is called the Bayesian brain. It's the second and most powerful tool in your director's arsenal. Understanding how it works explains why people are so difficult to convince and how our deepest beliefs are formed. In the next part, we'll look into this code of your reality. Every second, 11 million bits of information from your sensory organs bombard you. But your conscious processing capacity is only 50 bits. This is a discarding of 99.999% of data. How is this possible? Imagine a doctor assessing the probability of a rare disease. He has a prior belief. 1 chance in 1,000. Then the test result comes in. Bayes' theorem allows him to combine the old belief and new data to get an updated, more accurate probability. It seems the brain does the same, only instantly. But there's a nuance. Your brain's prior belief isn't statistics. It's your entire life, all your experience. Therefore, the brain doesn't process 11 million bits. It almost completely ignores them, defaulting to its old model. You don't see the world. You see the degree of the world's discrepancy with your beliefs about it. This explains why it's so difficult to convince a person. Their brain literally doesn't see facts that contradict their belief. But behind this lies an even more global physical principle. How can one principle explain everything? Vision, movement, consciousness. Neurobiologist Carl Friston proposed just such a theory: the free energy principle. Any living system, including your brain, desperately resists chaos. To do this, it needs to maintain itself in a predictable state. Minimizing surprise, i.e., prediction error, is the way to combat chaos. In practice, this means your brain has only two paths. Imagine, you predict that the room is warm, but you feel cold. This is an error. Path 1. Update the model, i.e., learn. It's winter outside, I see. Path 2. Change the world to match the model, i.e., act. Get up and put on a sweater. This is like maintaining balance. If you fall, you either shift your center of gravity or take a step. In any situation, you either learn by changing yourself, or you act by changing the world to confirm your correctness. But what if the brain has a third, dishonest way? Why do we love music with repetitive choruses so much? It's not just habit. Listening to music is a Bayesian process. The brain constantly predicts what the next note will be. When the prediction comes true, it's a success. But this success has biochemical reinforcement. When the brain's model is confirmed, its reward system releases a dose of dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter discovered in 1957. The pleasure from music is literally your brain's joy at its ability to predict the future. Complex jazz tires many, precisely because it creates too many prediction errors and deprives them of the dopamine reward. Your sense of harmony is largely a reward your brain gives itself for the world being predictable. You enjoy not so much the music as your own correctness. But the brain goes further. It doesn't just ignore data. It actively falsifies it. If the brain is so smart, why don't you notice the giant hole in your vision? At the point on the retina where the optic nerve exits, there are physically no photoreceptors. It's a blind spot. The brain hates emptiness. This is maximum surprise. Therefore, it uses information from the surrounding area to make the most probable assumption about what should be in the hole and fills in the picture. But we're not talking about a tiny dot. You blink up to 20,000 times a day. That's about 30 minutes of complete darkness. But you don't remember a single dark frame. Each time the brain cuts out this moment and replaces it with the previous one, creating the illusion of continuity. This is background falsification. In the next part, we will not just tell you, but visually demonstrate your personal blind spot. You will see with your own eyes proof that the stable world around you is an editing trick. And this will close one of our first riddles. Time for proof. On the screen now are two figures, a cross and a dot. Close your left eye. Focus your right eye on the cross. Now, slowly move your head closer to or further away from the screen without taking your eyes off the cross. Watch the dot. Where does it disappear? It hit your blind spot. This is the exit point of the optic nerve, where there are physically no photoreceptors. It's a real hole in your vision comparable in area to 15 lunar disks. But why, when the dot disappeared, did you see not a black hole but simply a uniform white background? Your brain doesn't tolerate emptiness. It actively sampled the surrounding texture and painted over the hole with the most probable content. The French physicist Edmé Mariotte demonstrated this trick as early as 1660 to King Louis XIV, making his courtiers disappear. This is the first proof you've received personally. Your brain is not a recorder, but a falsifier. It fills in reality. And now we'll close the second riddle and show how it cuts it out. Remember the question from the very beginning? How does your brain manage to shut off vision 3 or 4 times per second, yet you see a stable world? These are saccades, ultra-fast eye movements to scan the world. If you jerked a video camera in the same way, you'd get blurry, unwatchable video. So why is your world stable? The brain performs a brilliant editing trick. During each saccade, it completely shuts down the processing of visual information. This mechanism is called saccadic suppression. You go blind for fractions of a second, thousands of times a day. Your reality is not a continuous stream. It's a movie stitched together from individual static frames, from which the editor has discarded all the blurred takes. It works like a film projector that closes the lens with a shutter between frames so you don't see the blurred film movement. The brain is the editor. But who writes the script for this movie? How can an absolutely blind person be genuinely convinced that they see everything? This is Anton Babinski syndrome. They are not lying. They describe furniture and people who aren't there and believe it. This is an extreme pathological case of that filling in. Such a patient has damaged visual centers, and no more error signals come from the eyes. The brain is left alone with its internal model of the world, and it doesn't report no signal. It begins to broadcast its internal model woven from memory and expectations, as a real picture. We all suffer from this syndrome to some extent. When you are very strongly convinced of something, your brain begins to ignore contradictory facts and see only what confirms its model. A patient might describe a sunny day outside with a smile, while a thunderstorm rages. Blindness is not just a physical state, and the main source of this internal model is your past. Where does the brain get the data for filling in? Where is this giant library of textures and frames? It turns to its database, memory, and it finds the most suitable pattern there to close the gap. But this isn't just using experience. Perception is precisely the process of recognizing the past in the present. You constantly ask the question, what does this resemble from what I already know? The present is merely a screen onto which a movie from your past is projected. Your personal experience, upbringing, childhood traumas, and cultural code are not just memories. They are active filters that are right now shaping what you consider objective reality. You thought you were looking at the world, but in fact, you're watching a movie filmed years ago. And in the next part, we'll prove that the scripts for this movie differ radically among different people. Why can you effortlessly read this text in which almost all the letters are jumbled? Your brain doesn't see individual symbols. It recognizes words as whole images, predicting them by their general contour, first and last letters. But here's the twist: the same mechanism works with everything. You don't see a cup on the table. Your brain catches a couple of key features, a handle and a cylinder, and instantly retrieves the ready-made concept cup from memory. You see not an object, but a memory of it. You live not in a world of physical things, but in a world of mental labels created by your past. It's like recognizing winter by the first snow. The brain doesn't analyze all the details. It sees a sign and loads the entire season's map. Now, imagine that for entire peoples, these labels differ radically. Members of some African tribes who grew up in round huts in the middle of jungles are not susceptible to the famous Mueller-Lyer optical illusion. For them, two segments are always equal. The reason is that you grew up in a rectangular world of rooms, buildings, and furniture. Your memory is filled with patterns of right angles, and your brain automatically corrects the length of lines, seeing perspective in them. For people whose past experience does not contain these patterns, the brain simply does not have such a prior belief. It sees lines as they are. This proves even basic illusions are not optical deceptions, but the result of memory and culture. Arguments about politics and art are just the tip of the iceberg. We see the world differently at the most fundamental level, but the most powerful filter that separates us is not culture, but personal emotions. Why does a person who survived a dog attack in childhood still see a threat in a cute puppy 20 years later? Rationally, they understand the puppy is harmless, but their body reacts differently. The traumatic experience created an extremely strong prior belief. Dog equals danger. This experience gained immense weight in the brain's model because it was linked to a threat to survival. Any new data, such as a puppy's wagging tail, will have negligible weight compared to the strength of this past belief. One traumatic event can create a belief with a weight of 1,000 units, while 100 positive encounters will add only 1 each. Mathematically, the brain would rather distort reality than question a prediction that once depended on life. Your traumas are not memories. They are active filters that are currently protecting you, making you see danger where there is none. If the past so strongly determines what we see, can we rewrite the script? Yes. And for that, you have the fifth tool, emotional coloring. Your feelings work like a color filter on a camera lens. They don't change the scene, but they completely change your perception of it. And this is not a metaphor. Neurobiologists have proven that people in a state of fear literally notice details better in their peripheral vision. People in love perceive the world as brighter. Your emotions physically change the parameters of your perception. This brings us to the main point. Emotions are not a reaction to events. They are a tool the brain uses to prepare for predictable events. We think emotions are a reaction to facts, but the reality is the opposite. Emotions create facts. And this will explain our very first paradox. Remember the first riddle? Why are people in a state of mild depression statistically more accurate in assessing their chances than healthy optimists? The answer shatters everything we think about health. The brain of a healthy person, by default, creates a beneficial hallucination, a positive illusion. We slightly overestimate our strengths, our control over a situation, our chances of success. This is not a mistake. It is an evolutionarily advantageous bug that compels us to act. In people with depression, this filter is weakened. They see the world without rose-tinted glasses, and their assessments are frighteningly close to cold, statistical truth. Their illness is the disabling of a beneficial illusion. Your normal, healthy state is living within a carefully calibrated, positive lie. Objectivity in this context is not a virtue, but a symptom. And it is this mechanism that explains why, in arguments, our beliefs become more important than any facts. Why do two people, after watching the same news report, draw absolutely opposite conclusions? They are not just biased. They see different realities. When you encounter facts that contradict your deep beliefs, fMRI studies show that the same areas in your brain activate as when experiencing physical pain or a threat to survival. The brain perceives an attack on your belief as a real physical threat to yourself. It doesn't analyze facts. It defends itself. Trying to convince someone with logic is like treating a wound by inflicting new blows upon it. You are arguing not with their reason, but with their instinct for self-preservation. Their brain is literally screaming in pain, but there is one key capable of bypassing even this armored defense. How can a simple sugar pill relieve real, measurable pain? This is the placebo effect, the highest form of the predicting brain's work. Your belief in healing is so strong that the brain, predicting relief, triggers the production of its own painkillers, endogenous opioids. This is not self-suggestion. It's real biochemistry. If a patient is given a drug that blocks opioid receptors, the placebo effect disappears. In some studies, the pain-relieving effect of a dummy pill reached 55% of morphine's effectiveness. Your brain is the most powerful pharmacy in the world, and your beliefs are the prescription. A thought, initiated in the head, becomes a molecule in the blood. But what switch directs all these filters, beliefs, and predictions? We've uncovered 5 tools: prediction, the Bayesian filter, filling in, memory, and emotional coloring. But who sits in the director's chair and decides which one to use? This is the 6th, final tool: focused attention. It's not just concentration. It's a spotlight that allocates the brain's limited resources. Wherever you direct it, that becomes your reality. Everything else is not just ignored. It is actively erased from your perception, plunged into complete darkness. Of the 11 million bits of incoming information, your consciousness processes only 50. In the next part, we will prove you are absolutely blind to everything your spotlight isn't directed at. Prepare to meet the invisible gorilla again. Let's test your spotlight. On the screen now, there will be 2 teams in white and black jerseys. Your task, count how many times the players in white jerseys pass the ball to each other. Only white. Only passes. Be extremely precise. How many? 15. You did well. You are very attentive. But did you see the gorilla? Let's watch again. For exactly 9 seconds, a person in a gorilla suit walked across the entire scene, stopped in the center, beat their chest, and left. If you are among the half of viewers who didn't notice it, congratulations. You were just physically blind to a huge object in the center of the screen. This is not a trick. This is a fundamental law of how your brain works. Why did this happen? It's not your mistake. It's inattentional blindness. Your attention resources are extremely limited, and your brain, having received your director's command to count passes, acted as a ruthless censor. It didn't just miss the gorilla, it actively suppressed and blocked the processing of that information. The brain predicted that only the balls were important. It filtered out everything else using the Bayesian mechanism. Your memory didn't register the gorilla because it wasn't assigned value. Your power of concentration is also your blindness. The neurons responsible for processing the gorilla were active, but their signal was suppressed from above by your director's command. And this doesn't just work in tests. How do 83% of experienced radiologists, when examining lung X-rays, fail to notice an image of a gorilla on them that is 48 times larger than an average cancerous nodule? This is not negligence. This is the price of expertise. Their brains, perfectly trained to find one pattern, become absolutely blind to everything else. But this applies to you too. When you look for flaws in your partner to win an argument, your brain obligingly cuts out all their virtues from reality. When you look for threats in the world, you stop seeing opportunities. Your attention is an order you give to your film studio, and your brain, as an executive producer, will obediently cut out from the final edit everything that does not match your order. You don't just look at the world, you order it. So, we don't see what is, but what we focus our attention on. The gorilla experiment is a point of no return. We've realized our power, and thus our responsibility for the movie we call life. We have 6 powerful tools, but how do we assemble them into a single, working control panel for reality? In the final part, we will put all the pieces of this puzzle together. We will hand you a simple and clear model of your director's console. And at the very end, one question awaits you. Who will you choose to be after this knowledge? A viewer or the director of your film? We've journeyed from the shock of the invisible gorilla to the realization of our power. Now let's assemble your director's console from the 6 tools. Its foundation, the engine of the entire film studio, comprises the first 2 mechanisms. Controlled hallucination, that is, constant prediction, is the hardware itself. This engine never stops. It works in the background, like gravity, and the Bayesian brain is its operating system, its firmware. It's the strict mathematical law by which the engine calibrates its predictions after every error. This is the hardware and software of your reality. They work automatically. But who writes the script and edits the film? Here, 2 more automatic processes come into play. The editing and scripting departments. Your sensory filters are the editor. Its task is to cut out all technical flaws so that you believe in the film's integrity. It removes blurred frames from rapid eye movements. It fills in the holes in your vision from blind spots. It works invisibly, creating the illusion of continuity. And your memory is the chief scriptwriter. The brain doesn't invent reality from scratch. It takes ready-made scripts, images, and expectations from your past. It is memory that decides whether you will see danger or romance in a dark alley. It provides ready-made sets for the present. But who decides what genre this film will be? You, the director, decide that. And you have 2 main levers on your console: the camera and the lighting. Your emotional coloring is the lighting and soundtrack department. Emotions work like color filters, tinting a neutral scene in the warm tones of joy or the cold tones of fear. They write the soundtrack that dictates how you will interpret what is happening. And your focused attention is the chief cinematographer with the camera. It decides what gets into the frame and what remains outside it, erased from reality. The engine works. The scriptwriter and editor prepare the material, and you, with the help of emotions and attention, create the final version of the film. The control console is assembled. Now it's in your hands. This knowledge isn't just an interesting fact. It's a responsibility. Every moment of your life from now on is a choice. You can be the director. Consciously choose your focus of attention, manage your emotional filters, and create the film you want to see. This is an active and creative role. Or you can remain a viewer. Knowing all this, continue to believe that you are watching an objective movie filmed by fate or circumstances. This is a passive, comfortable, but illusory role. Now that you know the rules, the main choice is before you. Who do you consider yourself to be? Write just one word in the comments: director or viewer. There is no right answer here, but your choice will determine everything that comes next.